In December 2024, a Navy A-18 Super Hornet went down over the Red Sea, not to enemy fire, to friendly fire, from an American cruiser operating with the Carrier Strike Group. Then, during that same deployment cycle, the Navy lost 2 more Super Hornets in rapid succession. One went overboard from USS Harry S. Truman during evasive maneuvering while the ship responded to an inbound threat, and another was lost at sea after a carrier landing went wrong, linked to an arresting gear failure. 3 Super Hornets lost in roughly 5 months. And the bill isn't abstract. Each jet represents a high-end combat aircraft worth tens of millions of dollars, plus training, readiness, and combat power you can't instantly replace. And here's the kicker. These weren't museum pieces. The Super Hornet is still the backbone of American carrier aviation, the workhorse flying combat sorties in one of the most stressed maritime threat environments the Navy has faced in decades, which is what makes what happened next so revealing. Boeing has long warned the Super Hornet production line would wind down without additional orders, an endgame now widely reported as extending into the 2027 timeframe. Meanwhile, the Navy is pushing toward 5th-generation capacity with the F-35C, and planning for a next-generation fighter beyond that. And then, in December 2025, the Navy did something that snapped analysts to attention. It awarded Boeing about $931 million to modify Super Hornets already in the fleet, extending their lives and upgrading them with Block 3 capabilities meant for high-end contested warfare. This isn't a keep-it-flying patch. This is a decision to keep the Super Hornet lethal and relevant well into the decades ahead. Let's unpack what the Navy just bought for nearly $1 billion, because at first glance, it looks backward. This contract covers service life modifications for up to 60 Super Hornet airframes. These aren't factory-fresh jets rolling out of St. Louis. They're Block 2 aircraft that have already lived hard lives. Carrier cycles, salt air, high G-stress, and sustained operational tempo across multiple combat eras. The Navy wants to push many of these jets from 6,000 flight hours to 10,000 flight hours. That's not a tune-up. That is invasive structural work, opening up the jet, reinforcing and replacing life-limited components, and essentially rebuilding the aircraft's internal skeleton so it can safely take another decade plus of carrier aviation punishment. But here's the mystery. Why spend about $931 million, roughly $15+ million per aircraft if the full 60 are executed, on older fighters when the Navy already has the F-35C in production? On paper, the F-35C is stealthier, sensor-richer, and built for the modern data-driven kill chain. It's the crown jewel, the future, the jet that's supposed to make legacy platforms look like they're fighting with the lights off. The usual explanation is the strike fighter shortfall. Carrier air wings need jets now, so the Navy is squeezing every hour out of the Super Hornet until the next thing arrives. That's true, but it's not the whole truth. Because this contract isn't only about service life. It also funds integration of Block 3 avionics capabilities, upgrades designed for faster targeting, better networking, and survivability in complex electronic warfare environments. You don't spend that kind of money turning a stopgap into a smarter, more connected fighter unless you expect it to fight against serious threats in airspace where milliseconds and signatures matter. So the real question isn't why extend the Super Hornet. The real question is, what strategic problem is the Navy solving by making the Super Hornet more capable right now at scale? To understand this move, you have to understand the problem that keeps carrier planners up at night: range. And what range means when your opponent's entire strategy is built to keep carriers at arm's length. When the Navy retired the F-14 Tomcat, it lost a purpose-built fleet air defense interceptor that paired a powerful radar with the AIM-54 Phoenix, designed to engage threats at long distances and help keep the Carrier Strike Group protected against long-range raids. The Super Hornet that followed is an excellent multi-role fighter, but carrier aviation is governed by physics. Unrefueled radius depends on loadout and mission profile, but open-source Navy training and test references commonly cite a Super Hornet combat radius on the order of roughly 390 nautical miles in an interdiction profile. That's before you start adding the realities of threat routing, tanking, and time on station. That worked in years when carriers could operate closer to permissive coastlines. But in the Pacific, distance becomes a weapon. China fields a layered anti-access network built around long-range sensors, aircraft, submarines, and missiles, including anti-ship ballistic missile families with widely reported ranges that can reach hundreds to well over 1,000 miles depending on the system and variant. The design intent is straightforward: hold carriers at risk far enough out that their aircraft struggle to reach the fight with meaningful persistence. For years, the Navy used a workaround: turn Super Hornets into tankers, strap on refueling pods, use fighters to refuel other fighters. Clever on paper, costly in practice. Every Super Hornet configured as a tanker is one less fighter carrying weapons, and tanking with a fighter airframe consumes sorties, flight hours, deck cycles, and maintenance capacity. The exact things you can't waste when you're trying to generate sustained combat power from a moving runway at sea. So the Navy's range problem became a readiness problem. And that's the key context for why the Block 3 path and the service life investments behind it aren't nostalgia. They're a hard, pragmatic response to how the carrier air wing has to operate in a Pacific fight. So what does roughly $931 million actually buy? Start with the foundation. Service life. Getting a Super Hornet to 10,000 hours requires structural work that's closer to reconstruction than maintenance. The jet is opened up, inspected for fatigue and stress, and modified so it can safely survive the high cycle abuse of carrier aviation. Cat shots, arrested landings, corrosion, and sustained high-G maneuvering. This isn't theoretical. In 2024, Boeing announced delivery of the first service, life-modified Block 2 Super Hornets, upgraded to Block 3 capability, a visible marker that the second phase of the efforts is real and moving. But the real story is that the Navy isn't just extending life, it's buying capability density. Block 3 is where the Super Hornet becomes a better node in a modern kill web. One headline feature is the advanced cockpit system with its large area display, often described as a 10 by 19-inch screen. It's not about looking futuristic. It's about managing information in high-end combat, where pilots are saturated by sensors, data links, electronic warfare, and rapid retasking. Another major element is improved networking and computing, including architecture designed to support faster data movement and distributed targeting in contested environments. In plain terms, Block 3 is built to reduce the time between detection and decision, and to make the aircraft more effective inside a formation where different platforms see different pieces of the battle space. Then there's the passive hunt. Block 3 integration is designed to support the infrared search and track capability used by the Super Hornet community, allowing detection and tracking of airborne targets via heat signature without relying solely on active radar emissions. Passive sensing matters in modern air combat because it gives the force options: see more, reveal less, and complicate an enemy's targeting problem. Now add the part most people miss. Range isn't solved by a single modification. Yes, Block 3 has been associated with conformal fuel tank concepts, designed to add fuel with less drag penalty than traditional external tanks. But the Navy's decisive range lever isn't just fuel on the jet, it's fuel in the air, delivered by a platform designed for it. That's where the MQ-25 Stingray comes in, a carrier-based unmanned tanker built to extend the reach of the air wing without sacrificing strike fighters to the tanking mission. Public program descriptions commonly cite fuel offload on the order of approximately 14,000 to 15,000 pounds at 500 nautical miles. Exact figures vary by reference, but the operational idea is consistent: push gas out, push fighters forward, and stop burning up combat jets just to keep other combat jets airborne. Put it together, and Block 3's logic becomes clear. The Navy is building a carrier air wing that can operate with better networking, improved survivability options, and a more sustainable approach to range, while it waits for whatever comes after the Super Hornet to actually arrive at scale. Now zoom out to what this means. The Navy's Super Hornet fleet is often reported as on the order of approximately 550 aircraft. This contract touches up to 60 more jets, joining a broader multi-year effort already underway. The result is a carrier air wing that keeps its mass, its sortie generation capacity, while gaining more of the attributes modern fights demand: better data flow, better targeting timelines, and more options under electronic attack. Pair that with MQ-25, and the impact isn't just theoretical, it's structural. You stop trading strike fighters for tankers, you stop cannibalizing readiness to solve physics, and you begin to reshape how far a carrier can influence events while managing the risk posed by long-range threats. And here's the uncomfortable reality. Even as the F-35C expands, the Super Hornet remains indispensable. The F-35C is a high-end capability: stealth, sensors, and fusion, but it is also a more complex system to sustain. Meanwhile, late-lot pricing, reported publicly, for the F-35C has commonly been around the low $100 million range per aircraft, depending on contract and accounting basis. And operating costs are often misunderstood. Some widely repeated cost per flight hour figures mix different accounting methods. Official Department of Defense reimbursement rate tables, for example, show one set of per-hour cost figures used for budgeting and reimbursement that can differ from fully burdened cost estimates. The point isn't which number wins the internet argument. The point is that high-tempo carrier operations punish fleets with fragile sustainment pipelines, which is why the Navy's choice here is telling. Boeing's new-build Super Hornet line is expected to wind down later this decade, but service life modification work extends the relevance of existing jets into the years when the Navy still needs capacity, before the next generation replacement can plausibly show up in meaningful numbers. This is not the Air Wing procurement timelines promised. This is the Air Wing reality forced by physics, budgets, production capacity, and the evolving threat. So where does this go? The Navy's next-generation carrier fighter, often referred to publicly as FX, is still a program in development, with timelines commonly discussed in the 2030s. But that's exactly why the Navy is acting now. Because contested carrier aviation doesn't pause while programs mature. The service is betting on a blended approach: manned fighters made smarter and longer-lived, and unmanned systems that expand reach and resilience. The MQ-25 is the opening move. Beyond it, the broader U.S. push toward collaborative uncrewed aircraft, platforms that can extend sensing, carry weapons, complicate enemy targeting, or act as decoys, points toward an air wing that fights as a distributed team, not a handful of individual aircraft. And that brings us back to those 3 Super Hornets lost between December 2024 and May 2025. Those incidents weren't just bad luck. The Navy's own release summaries, as reported publicly, tied them to a mix of combat operating conditions and human factors: training integration gaps, communication breakdowns, maintenance challenges, and manning and knowledge shortfalls in critical areas. That is the real warning light. Block 3 makes the jet more capable. Service life mods keep it in the fight. MQ-25 extends the reach. But none of it matters if the operational system behind the aircraft, training, maintenance, shipboard execution, and readiness under stress, can't keep pace with wartime tempo. The Navy just committed about $931 million to ensure the Super Hornet remains a frontline tool well into the decades ahead. Whether that investment pays off depends on something bigger than hardware: the United States' ability to sustain a force that can operate forward, fight smart, recover fast, and do it again tomorrow. Thanks for watching.